Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And of course, we got a couple of regular guests on Loving Live TV joining us tonight, and we'll get into that in a second. Before we do, please, guys, have Dion Nell in your prayers. Dion Nell went missing just over a week ago in South Africa. Well, he didn't go missing. He was kidnapped by some thugs, and everybody is very concerned about his welfare. So please pray for Dion and have him in your prayers. Now, the format tonight is going to be a debating discussion format. And you know our guests are Colyn and Muzi Nkosi. And yes, Mark and Mel, I will put those little comments to Colyn when we get him on in a second. Colyn has asked if you have any questions regarding what's going on in South Africa or in the world. Please put them in the side chat, and he will obviously discuss those during the evening. All right, let's get the show on the road. I'll start off with Colyn. Here we go. Hi, Colyn.
Yo, Scott.
How you going, buddy?
All right, thank you. And you?
Excellent, mate, excellent. Look, I'm going to get Muzi on, but while I am, I've got a couple of comments in the side chat I just want to share with you. Oh, your camera's not on, mate?
Yeah.
Let's get your camera on, then we'll that's it. There we go. All right, yeah. Look, the comments are very relevant, okay? Mark says, vrou sê Colyn lyk deesdae soos 'n wilde bosvark.
Yeah.
And Mel says, tell Colyn I will come to Nelspruit and give him a nice cut and shave.
I've got a thing, Scott.
Yeah.
A thing. I don't cut my hair in the winter.
Right.
And it's been like that for donkey years. Because if I cut my hair, I get flu.
Oh, really? So it's your vaccine, I take it.
Yes, it's my vaccine.
Well, that's a better one than the one that they dish out in the hospitals, that's for sure. Hi, Muzi.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Good to see you again. And you guys met briefly just a short while ago. And just to fill you in, I've told everybody that if they've got questions, they should put them in the side chat, and I will put those to you guys as well. But let's kick this off. South Africa right now is in complete and utter turmoil in so many ways. It is a failed state. And I think one of the biggest victims of all this are the youth in South Africa. Muzi, what's your views on what's happening as far as young people are concerned in South Africa?
Right. The young people, unfortunately, completely lost. So I'm 28, and recently I spoke to a 21-year-old girl who works at the gym, and I asked her, "Hey, what do you guys care about in your generation, Generation Z?" And she said, the first thing she said was, "I don't know." And then I asked her, "Okay, what do you personally care about?" And she said, "Well, just having fun." And I said, "Is that it? Nothing else? What do you think of the state of the country? What about things you want to accomplish in the future?" And she said, "No, I don't care. I just want to have fun. All this bad stuff is part of life. I'm just going to ride the wave as much as I can." And I said, "Isn't that a tad bit apathetic?" And she didn't know what that meant. And I said, "That pretty much means you are disengaged from reality completely." And she said, "Yeah, I don't care. I just want to have complete fun." Some others might say that's just one person who's just an idiot, but that's not the case, because we don't see young people saying anything logical. We don't see young people trying to reach out to you, Scott, and actually present some steps into fixing things. We don't see young people talking at all about geopolitical issues or even national issues. Regardless of what race they are, from all that I've engaged with, they're all completely screwed in the head. And so the reasons, though, I believe that they are this way is because they don't have much hope anyway in their future in this country. A lot of them were promised lies, such as myself, who were promised everything Disney Channel had to offer. We believed the lies of the TV, reinforced by social media, reinforced by our lecturers at university. We graduate, and all the things we thought we could get because the TV told us doesn't exist, it's impossible. And here we are, our parents are looking at us, "Why don't you have a job? Why are you so useless? Why this, why that?" Many can't cope with this reality that, "Oh no, my parents led me astray all along, thanks to Disney Channel and fake stream media and whatever. And now I'm completely lost. I spent 4 years getting a useless degree. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to smoke all day. I can't handle this. I can't handle the fact that I was completely led astray." And then you get guys like me, who was in Great Depression for 5 years because of that, but I had to pull myself up and say, "You know what, it's not going to help you just sitting here. You have to do something." I have been doing something, and it did not work out because the majority of young people have just disengaged and just completely given up because they don't believe it's completely possible to do anything good in this country. You have a better chance leaving. So those who can't leave, well, they just sit at home and smoke and play video games if there's electricity.
Right. Now, Colyn, can you turn your volume up a little bit, your audio volume?
My volume,
Or just speak a bit louder, maybe.
is it better now?
Yeah, if you just speak a bit louder, some people had a problem hearing you. But look, that's okay. Colyn, do you want to just respond to what Muzi said?
Yeah, Scott, I can relate to a lot of things that he is saying because I have the same experience that the youth. They
Sorry.
what is happening around them. They live in this, it seems to me that they live in this bubble that reality is what they see reflected inside the bubble. And on what I'm going to say now is most probably going to be a bit controversial, but I had a chat with my children, and my sons is they're in their 30s, and I said to them, that was about 5 years ago, and I said to them, what you guys must understand very clearly, my generation is the only thing that is standing between you and brutal violence. For the simple reason, these militant blacks, they fear my generation. But you guys, you are wishy-washy about everything, and you think things will come right if you just ignore it. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And I've got a major problem with the conduct of most of the youth. The way that they act and the way that they interact is all basically computer game based. It seems to me they've got this idea that at any moment when things really go wrong, they'll hit escape. And I'm sorry, Pop. They're in for a hell of a surprise. The problem that we have in the country is that the youth, there's such a large volume of them who are actually zero productive. They're not productive. So I said to sons, my one son is in the sales game, and the other one has got a embroidery factory. And I said many times, he is the one with the best advantage of all of us. Not all of us, no, exclude me, but his main advantage in life that he has is 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock before he closed the factory. He can look and there's a heap of products produced. So he can actually physically see what happened to his day. Where these guys that are working in offices and working in sales and human relations and tree climbing and all that shit, they close the door at 5 o'clock, and if they just open it quickly and look back in the office, there's nothing. They can see nothing. And for me, I've been a programmer and coder and business analyst and things like that for most of my life. But I've always had very physical hobbies. I was building models, building radio control stuff and intricate boats. I mean, I've got a boat that is standing here in my office that took me 996 hours to build. Things like that. And many people questioned me about the fact that I was doing that. And I said, you must understand, I live in a world where at the end of the day, I can't look into my office and see what I've done. I know I've been busy like hell, and I've spoken to 1,000 people and written 100,000 pages and crap like that. But I can't really see these things. That's why when I get home at night, I spend an hour or 2 hours in my study, my workshop, working on the model. Because I step back from that model and I can actually see what I've done with that 2 hours.
Right.
That is something that I think there's many people, and now I'm not talking the youth, I'm talking about people in general that do not understand the value of a hobby. And my wife, she's just as old as I am. She retired 6 years ago, but she's still working. And when she turned 60, I said to her, Poppy, you better get yourself a hobby that can keep you busy physically. Because if you hit retirement, you're going to be in deep shit. Because you're going to get up in the morning and your day is going to be empty and lying in front of you like a mountain. And if you don't get something that you're going to keep yourself busy physically, you're going to go off your rocker.
Yeah. Now, I just want to expand on this subject because I think a lot of what's going on in the world today, and I'm talking about the youth again, is as a result of how the entire education system has been hijacked. And it was hijacked a long time ago. In fact, most young mothers and young fathers today are very liberal leaning because they weren't given a balanced education in schools. And this is the same around the world. And what that's led to is a world where they're far more accepting for weird things like the LGBTQ and transgender and stuff like that. And it's really no surprise when you think that they're now bringing comprehensive sex education into schools at the age of 6. And they're actually pushing this agenda that, you know, if you're a boy, you might be a girl. Or boys on one day have to come into school with dresses on. I mean, this is child abuse, and it's no wonder that we call Generation Z snowflakes, because they don't know where the hell they're going, who they are, they don't have a moral compass, and they're totally indoctrinated by the system. Muzi, what are your views on that?
Yeah, I agree. I used to teach at a high school here at Lowville High. It was a short contract job. And the first thing I noticed was how the children are ill-disciplined, and that you are not allowed, number one, to discipline them or correct them on their skew morality. There was a time I was teaching art, and there was a time these young girls, I think they were 15 years old, and one of them was talking about dating a taxi driver. And I jumped in there and I said, whoa, girls, you can't be serious. You're still too young. Why are you so concerned about dating at this age, especially to grown men? And she tried to justify as to like, well, I get more stuff, he buys me things. And I said, no, look, right now you're at a stage in your life where you should just focus on yourself, develop yourself, get some hobbies, and know where you're going. Don't get involved with old people just because they're buying you things. And then I told the young guys too, that guys, you need to see what's going on here. You need to see what's going on here so that you don't become like these taxi drivers, or you don't get taken advantage of by taxi drivers or older women. You need to know where you're going. And then the teacher told me, she said, hey, you're not allowed to do that. And I said, what? She said, you're not allowed to get involved. And I said, but I'm teaching them what they should do. And she said, no, that's not allowed. And I was so puzzled as to like, what the heck, why not? And then another teacher, she told me she got strangled a previous year by a student who was in grade 11, I think, grade 11 or 9. And how they're not allowed to defend themselves. And so the only way the student got off of her was because other students came to take him off. And I said, this is complete madness. How do you manage these kids then? Where the heck are they going if you're not allowed to call them to order? And all the teachers were so like brainwashed as to like, it's just the law, it's just the law. And I said, but it's not okay for you to get strangled. And she was just a complete zombie. Oh, well, I didn't die. It's just the law. Next time I'll be careful not to trigger these children. So there's a lack of consequences for ill behavior. And these children grow up seeing the TV and all their idols do all this retardation. And some of their idols might be Jacob Zuma and other politicians who steal millions and get away with it. And they also want to do the same thing, because there are no consequences for anything. this time, whenever you want to say the right thing and or resist evil or resist that, you're called a bigot, you're called racist, you're called whatever. You're not allowed to speak facts anymore. And each time you try to teach young kids or anybody, well, younger than me, they just have this fear of being judged by their peers. They just have no backbone at all. It's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. Now, same question to you, Colyn. Colyn, what are your thoughts about the current situation when it comes to the education system in not just South Africa but around the world, and how that is impacting how children think? And you know, the children seem lost today. Over to you.
Look, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. And if I talk about triple X, I'm talking about Klaus Schwab's gang and that other ethnic group that I call them the hook noses, and then the capitalists, those guys that are owning 80% of the world. And I call them I call them triple X. Now, for us to understand where we are now, we have to look at how we got here. The main goal of triple X is zero family. There must not be a family unit, because a family unit is dangerous to them, because a family unit cannot be easily manipulated. Now, when the women's movement started just after World War II, the main aim of that was actually to get to the children. Because if they have the children, they know they've got the future. So they started this massive drive to get women into the workplace. That served two purposes. One, a bigger tax base for them. Two, the children was now alone and had to go to a school, a government school. And there they had the children. And from there, it progressed until you reached by around about the late, I would say the late 70s, early 80s. You reached a place where women didn't want to get married anymore. Well, they didn't want to get married early because they were looking after their careers. They had career prospects. And, okay, less time for children. Okay? And then it progressed to where we are today, that children, the bulk of the children of the Western world, I'm not going to talk about the East, it's totally different there. The Western world children are basically being brought up by TikTok and TV and television shows and internet and things like that. The parents get home very late in the afternoon. Both are tired. They just want to relax for some. They want to get the kids into the bed as quick as possible. So in many families, the quality time of the family is shrunk to 30 minutes while they're driving the kids back from school or what? And something like that. I was on a radio show on RSG one morning about my food blog, and it's called Mankos, and the presenter asked me, but why did you start this blog? And I said, listen, the first thing for me is important that men must start cooking. They must start cooking, and in that process, they can be help to their wives, but the woman must understand that men has got a very tender ego when it comes to stupid things in there, what they call stupid things. A simple thing, like splitting an egg, the white and the yellow apart. It sounds simple. It sounds, yeah, until you give it to a guy that has never done it. And then you see some sports. But the ego of that man, he has seen his wife doing it 100 times. But his ego will prevent him from asking her how to do it. He will not. He just will not. So he rather don't touch it. And I said, so my blog was based, in my blog, and if you look at my food blog, you'll see it's stories. That I tell a story about the process. I don't give recipes with 2 ounces of this and 3 spoons of that and 12 beets this side and all that. I tell a story. And I said, the big thing for a woman, what they must do is they must take their husband, take him into the kitchen, pick the dish that he likes a lot, and teach him how to make that. Once you've done that, and he has succeeded in doing it, you're going to have a husband in that house that you don't know, because most of them will be inspired to try something else and try something else, and out of things that he wants to try and things like that. But I said, okay, this is the play side of it. Let's come to the practical side. You've got 2 children, they're about 10, 12 years old, and your husband and you. Both of you work the whole day and you get home 5:30 in the evening. You teach everyone in the family the responsibility of one dish. So if you want to make a meal, you will most probably just do the meat. Your husband has got something else to do, and the kids has got something else to do. And all of that together is a plate of food. And when you're in that position, if you get home and you go into the kitchen and your husband slumps down in front of the TV and the children take a hike into the bedrooms and start playing the Xboxes and shit like that, you don't scream at them, you don't shout at them, you do nothing. You do your part. And when it's dinner time, there's only that one thing on the plate, and that's it. And if they ask about, you say, okay, but where's yours? Where's yours? Where's yours? There's mine. And she looked at me and she said to me, you know, I've never thought about it like that, but it makes a lot of sense. And I said, you must understand, what will happen in your family is the 4 of you are in the kitchen for half an hour or 45 minutes preparing the meal. All 4 of you together. Time that you can talk to one another, make jokes to one another and all of that, and enjoy the meal, and that's it. And there is a quality hour for that family. And when those children of yours grow old, that is what they're going to remember. Those times in the kitchen.
Scott, can I add to that real quick?
Sorry. Hey, my mother, I had a holy terror of a mother. The actual fact is, my mother and my grandmother, they, in Afrikaans, I say, hulle het pop gespeel met my. They played doll with me. Before I was 5, I could embroider this little thick cloths. I could. The only thing that I could never really get was knitting and crochet. I could never get that. But the rest of the stuff, and cooking and all of that, that is how I was brought up.
Yeah. Now, Muzi, you wanted to put a or respond to Colyn's.
Yeah, I wanted to add that even the triple X madness started before even the women's movement. I'd say in the Industrial Revolution, where basically this was an attempt to exchange our freedom for convenience, in which everybody moved to the city because there were better jobs. It was not as hard as working in the field. And you go to the cities, and that's where a lot of mental illnesses were developed, because suddenly you're in the city, maybe you find a job, maybe you don't. Now you start wondering what your purpose is. Now you don't know who you are, where you're going, why you're born. But a lot of people who were in the countryside, their purpose was their circumstance, and it was quick and easy. There was a sense of community, and everybody felt the needed. Versus like in the city, if you don't make it in the rat race, well, you're the scum of the earth. You don't feel needed. And now you question yourself, what am I? Why am I here? Yada, yada, yada. We know Karl Marx was the son of a rich person, and he was an idiot who got bored and started writing satanic poetry and wondering, how could I make the world a better place? If he was in the countryside and not stuck in the city looking at four walls, wondering what his purpose is, he probably wouldn't have written his communist thesis at all. He'd probably be farming grapes or something, being actually productive, feeding the community, feeling like he belongs somewhere, unlike the city. And so I'd say it started all the way back then. And now that we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, where we're all going to be replaced by robotics or AI, the whole 2020 situation was a great transitioning phase to that. A lot of people lost their jobs, so on and so on. And this is the new normal, in which now there's such a thing as quiet quitting. People are burning out a lot sooner because they just don't feel the juice is worth the squeeze, because ultimately, regardless of what they do, it never seems to be enough. Along with this Russian whatever war happening, that to me seemed like a psyop, and still is, because that was just a means for to jack up inflation. Because right now we see that NATO rejected Ukraine, and so they were hinting that they're going to join Ukraine, it's going to lead to World War III, but it didn't happen. So it was all a means to just squeeze the middle class further. What they want to do is to completely destroy the middle class. So you just have the elites and the poor, but the middleman will be technology, basically. And last thing I wanted to add was everything Colyn mentioned about the family structure of this generation. That's how I grew up. Go to school, talk with my parents, maybe in the car for 30 minutes a day, come back, they want to put us to sleep, yada, yada, yada. Don't really have a relationship with my parents to this day. They don't really understand me. They think they do, but they really don't. And there's this division in which now, when critical things happen in the world, and I'm a critical thinker, and I said, hey, don't take this thing, it's gonna hurt you. They didn't listen to me. Most of them didn't, right? Hey, don't do this. Hey, let's assess this. Hey, let's think about that. They don't want to do that. They still stuck in their old mindset of things. And then when you tell them that, listen, a lot of things have changed. I can't live life the way you lived it 40 years ago. You need to understand how this generation operates. A lot of them are not open to even thinking about that reality. So there is a lot of division amongst the generations here, even amongst children and their parents. So yeah, I agree with Colyn with that, but I didn't use that as an excuse to become a video game loser with no skills. My skills might not be that practical, but as you said, at least I I draw books. I have a lot of books that I made. So instead of getting drunk, I'll create a book. Other people don't know the value of a hobby, especially, well, black people. They just prefer to go with the crowd and instead of sitting there and doing their own little thing. So, yeah.
Right. Now, before I put a question to Colyn, I just want to say, Colyn, that those articles that you've got on a blog, we have an amazing forum on Loving Life TV, and if you'd like to, I'm just putting this forward to you, we would be happy to host those on our forum as well. But that's totally up to you. We can talk about that later. Now, I want to just keep on this theme with the youth. The government is now talking about parents being caretakers, not parents anymore. So in other words, they're just kind of just got this, they're benefiting from just growing their own kids up, but the kids actually belong to the government. That's where this whole thing is moving. And what concerns me, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Colyn, when you were talking about the SASA generation, the SASA youth military, and especially when you consider what Ramaphosa in South Africa said the other day about how the young ANC members need to start rising up and defending the party. What are your thoughts about this whole thing when it comes to SASA and the way the government is actually using that as a tool?
Me or him?
No, you.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did a series of videos on the SASA generation. And I think it was on my last or the one before that where I talked about it, where I explained what I see as the SASA generation. And I'm going to just give a brief explanation of what I mean when I refer to the SASA generation. I'm talking about a child that grew up without a father. Primarily, number one, he does not have a father. He is in an environment where there's not a present father or a father present. That is the first thing that you must understand. The second thing is poorly educated. Poorly educated. Now, I did a skid mark on the SASA generation were bred for a purpose. And I got a hell of a lot of shots about that one, and I've got 150,000 times more thumbs ups for that. The simple thing that we, the three of us talking here and the people listening, must understand, South Africa is standing on a knife's edge. We are in the middle between BRICS and the G7. And if I say BRICS, I'm talking about the countries that are in BRICS and want to come in BRICS and all of that. You know what I'm talking about. The countries that was previously colonized and all of that. In other words, the developing world against the West. Now, for the West, South Africa's only value is the Cape Sea route. And incidentally, for the BRICS, the same thing. And I have said it in all my Skidmarks, South Africa did not join BRICS. Don't bluff yourself. The two masterminds in BRICS is Russia and China. And both of them know the value of the Cape Sea route. Because the Cape Sea route will connect the Eastern BRICS countries with the South American BRICS countries. That's the one thing. The other thing is the Cape Sea route will bring commodities from the East, from the BRICS bloc, to America and Europe And then people say, yeah, but they can go through the Suez Canal. A while back, that Suez Canal was blocked by one container ship that turned sideways in it. And they made a lot of stories about that whole thing and how it happened, the wata. I'm firmly convinced the Chinese did that to show the Europeans how vulnerable they are. I'm 100% sure that's what happened there.
Colyn?
And then,
Colyn?
yes.
Sorry, can I just get you back onto the question? We were talking about the youth and SASA.
Yeah, but
we'll talk about
that.
We'll talk about BRICS separately.
The problem is that generation that was bred for a purpose. When the fight is going to break out between BRICS and the G7 for the Cape Sea route, what is the favorite way of America to destabilize a country? They call it a color revolution. A color revolution or a Maidan. To get that going, they're going to need rioters, because they have to have the rioters. In South Africa, unfortunately, has been pre-packed and waiting for the moment. They've got the SASA generation, which is roughly about 12 million people. And they've got millions in squatter camps around the main cities. Now, when the West wants to do a color revolution in Iran, they have to spend millions of dollars, millions and millions, on the NGOs to mobilize the public in Iran. Same in Pakistan. They got to spend the money to mobilize the people, big money. And in South Africa, it's going to cost them T-shirts and Kentucky. And those squatters and that SASA generation is going to go for the streets. Because once they hit the streets, and I believe that the KwaZulu thing was a pre-run. It was just a little bit of a test run to see if it works. Because their end goal is to get to a place where the government cannot control the chaos. And then they'll bring in the peacekeepers. Now, where is this peacekeeper going to come from? From the outside. And there's already a hell of a lot of them sitting in Botswana waiting, and a lot sitting in Lesotho waiting. Lesotho is 15 minutes from Bloemfontein. Botswana is 17 minutes from Cape Town. And all hell is going to break loose. And the youth is going to be the cannon fodder. Those are the people that they're going to slaughter by the thousands. Look what they did in the Middle East. 11 million people were killed. So the youth has been set up. And as I said in one of my Skidmarks, why invest in a person? Millions for education, if you know he's going to expire before he's actually going to use that education. So our education system has been destroyed in any case. There's a little bit of remnants here and there, but not serious. The bulk of the SASA generation is uneducated. So they're not going to invest in them, in education. They did not invest in. The next thing is, our economy is in shambles. The unemployment and the youth is about 55%. They're not worried about it because that youth is not going to need the jobs because they're not going to be there. There was an article done in 2014 in which Clem Sumner talked about this problem with education. And when I was at university, I knew a guy that was in the technical division at the CSIR. And at that stage, and I mean, that was in the late 70s, they did a survey of South Africa, of the natural resources of South Africa. And there was a lot of people involved in it, but at the end of that, they came to the conclusion that the natural resources of South Africa, and specifically water, was enough to sustain a population of around about 45 million. That will mean the population will have no problem with water, and the farming community will have no problem with water at that 45 million. Now, nobody that is part of this program must have any illusions of the evilness of XXX. They know this. They know South Africa can carry 45 million people. They know it. We're already at 65 million. And unofficially, and in the dungeons, there's 30 million illegal immigrants here. But they're not concerned about the immigrants because they can pack those immigrants in buses and send them back to where they came from. That they can handle. But this 65 that sits here is a massive problem. But they've got a plan. When that Maidan or color revolution is triggered, I am quite sure they've already done the calculations. Okay, let's take out 20 million.
Yeah. Okay, now
that is all I'm going to say about the youth in this time that we are.
Right. Now, just to respond to what you were saying there, on the 27th of July, I've got the Director General of the Department of Water and Sanitation, that's Dr. Sean Phillips, joining me on a live stream, and that's going to be a cracker because we're going to be talking very frankly and bluntly about what's happening to the water situation in South Africa. And just, I'd like Muzi to now respond to what Colyn said, but just a point I'd like to raise is that the United Nations were in Rwanda in 1994 when that genocide took place, and they literally walked away and left them to it. So I'm concerned about the UN's role when it comes to South Africa, is what I'm saying. Muzi, over to you. What do you have to say in response to Colyn?
Well, I agree to some extent, but I think maybe we're jumping the gun here a bit because I don't think South Africa can implode just yet, because all these other countries like Rwanda or Zimbabwe or the Middle East, the Americans screwing them over, there were no transnational investments as of yet when all those countries fell apart, as far as I know. Here in South Africa, there's so many of them. The private sector here is enormous. Zimbabwe didn't have time to develop a private sector when they kicked out the white farmers. It was just a free-for-all, and everything disintegrated very quickly, along with all these other African nations that seem to have fallen apart very quickly. Here, there's just so much foreign investment that a lot of the big boys in the XXX, they have some of their money here too. I don't think they're just gonna let it all tumble just like that. I think there has to be a simultaneous destruction along with the rest of the West when South Africa falls. I think when everything falls apart here, there has to be a cyber attack and blamed on Russia or whoever in the States or wherever. And so there can be this savior, because things like the food chain and all these interlinked logistical things that are like connected in the world, it's all part of the G7 or the BRICS movement, yada, yada. It's all connected. So I personally think that it's going to fall apart at the same time as America and Europe. Now, as for the youth, however, when they hear things like this, they I can almost sympathize with them or empathize with them. They say, you see, when we hear what Colyn says, why should we care? Why should we do anything? You're wasting your time, Muzi, trying to do something, right? You think you're better than us? You're going to die along with us. Some of these other savages are going to come to your house. You're trying to build a shelter. You're trying to do this. You're going to die along with us. Absolute hopelessness. Because regardless of whatever plan you might have, a plan such as the Satelanders plan, they are going to be overrun as well. There is absolutely no hope. So to some extent, sometimes I say, I can't blame young people for feeling so hopeless. I can't blame them for picking the winning team, because the winning team is a retard like Julius Malema who's going to scream, kill all the white people. And of course, it's going to be a lot easier if you join that winning team since there's more of them, right, as to the others. So I can understand to some extent. Is it right? Of course not. But what can you do and what can you say to these people when this is the image that we're always projecting? There does not seem to be a way out. The Oranians have seem to have built a way out. Not many people are going to run to the desert to try and find them and steal whatever little resources that are in the desert. What we saw in the 2021 riots, people went into their own communities first, right? The Soweto Mall, people around Soweto went to the mall to bust in there. I forgot that other community in KZN, but these people went into their own places before they ran into the cities. That's how they actually operate. They just take the easiest target. Now, if they are bust in because it has to be a controlled demolition, well, that's where we're all going to be in big trouble. Because if they're bust in, then there's nothing we can do. They're just going to run amok and destroy everything. As to the Sasa people, yeah, you know, this is a shame because, yes, there's a lot of people born without fathers and a lot of young people that even I know, 13, 14-year-olds, willfully choose to have children just to get more money. You know, it's absolutely insane. It's disgusting. And you cannot correct these people. They're even encouraged by their grandmothers that, go, my child, we need more money for groceries. Don't worry, I can raise this baby the same way I raised your mother, yada, yada, yada. These children are then raised by the streets because mom and dad is nowhere to be found. They turn into a criminal. One day they kill grandma to take her SASA grant and bury her in the front yard. This is what they do. This is what they do, right? And now it's like, who can stand and even voice out these problems? Because the politicians are not doing that. Not a single one is representing what the youth is actually going through. No one is talking about, hey, millennials, you guys can't afford a home. You guys can't afford a car. You guys have no future. We understand what you're going through. Here's something for you to do. You guys are suffering from mental illness. There is no program. There is no attempt to rehabilitate those who are broken. Anybody searching for answers always finds the wrong answer. People like Penwell, the Black Pen, interviewing monsters like Dr. Umar Johnson and celebrity idiots like DJ Spoo, reinforcing the social media lie that believe and you can just be a millionaire from thin air. Dance and shake your butt and you can just be a millionaire. All these things are just not realistic. They are all in a bubble created by Hollywood. Hollywood has socially engineered the entire planet to believe that life has happy endings if you just work hard enough. And this social engineering has butchered all of us. It butchered me. I had to get locked up for 24 hours or 48 hours in a mental hospital, actually, in 2019, when I realized about to graduate that my dreams are not going to come true. When I realized that, wait a minute, I live in Africa. There's no hope here. I don't live in America. I had to be locked away because I could not handle the reality that I wasted my time. I wasted my life. Now what? Others, when they come to this realization, because it creeps up on you, it started with me with panic attacks. It creeps up on you, and when it creeps up on them, they run to the liquor store. They run to the parties. They run to fornication, having more kids, and yada, yada, yada. No one wants to do the right thing. because there's no return of investment in doing the right thing. And here I am living as an example, and I'm broke. I have nothing. It's like, with all your brains, what did you do? What are you doing? You're not doing anything. Even if I was, it wouldn't matter, because they'd say, well, we don't care. You're going to die too anyways, remember? They're going to collapse the country anyway, remember? So you're doomed. So the main thing here is a sense of hopelessness. The Oranians, without a doubt, they created some form of hope that what you need to do to be free, you must be brave, number one, and go your own way and create a shadow government, a shadow community. I was an advocate of this, but many people just want to believe things are going to go away. They don't want to be personally involved. They want to vote for somebody. I bet you somebody now might be saying Muzi should be president. I've heard it all before. I can't, they would kill me, because I don't represent what they want, which is instant gratification, easy access to resources, and no responsibility or accountability. What do you do with such a people? I've always said that in order to fix such a people, you need hard power. You need a hard hand. It's why they respect dictators more. It's why to this day, that great murderer, Shaka Zulu, still respected. Why they listen to a maniac like Julius Malema? Because the loudest moron in the room is the smartest. As long as he can scream much louder than you, it means he knows what he's talking about. So this is who we're dealing with. Uneducated morons, but then you get educated morons, people with PhDs who don't know what they're talking about. People with PhDs who told us, follow the science. And look where that ended up. So it's a shame. And for me, now I know better as to like, okay, this is how we can approach the youth. Because at first, I also judged them harshly as, you're just lazy, you're just stupid. But actually, they just don't see any hope at all. They don't see anybody amongst them actually living successfully. Those who do live successfully had to pay the price by selling their soul to the music business or some other weird thing that they had to do. And those things are not sustainable, and everybody knows it. So the youth have no understanding how to live sustainably. They are brainwashed completely by the Hollywood social engineering that all things have a happy ending, that it's going to magically work out. And so it's a problem, really. How do you get that out of their head? Because if I am out of this delusion and I am in this situation, they won't see me as a good example. They'll just say, you see, even he's a failure. We might as well just sit where we are.
Now,
I
just
agree
sorry,
with
Colyn, before you respond, I see behind your head, Muzi, you've got a little sign that says palm trees. Now, are you aware that there's some people under this LGBTQ banner who identify as palm trees?
Whoa. Well,
that's a good one,
not
isn't
that
it?
one, but I knew they identified as other crazy things, but
Yeah.
that's a new one.
Now, Colyn, over to you. I saw a lot of body language happening there. You obviously got a lot to say. Over to you.
He has confirmed that the youth understands that they have no future. He's confirmed that. The hard, cold reality is this ANC government is a brutal gangster government. They don't care about the fact that those kids are hopeless. They don't care about that. He mentioned that there's no psychological support for them if they have problems. Why the hell should they care about psychological support? They don't even provide them with basic education. And that is a massive problem. And then he said, how do we fix it? I'm afraid that the only way to fix that is a brutal dictator that take those thousands that are unemployed and give them each a shovel or a pick and make them build a fucking highway by hand. Wheelbarrows, shovels, and picks. and labor them with men on horseback and whips for 8 hours a day. By sundown, they are so tired, they gulp their food down and they pass out. And that is the only way that you can change it. But we don't have somebody like that. Yeah, I know a few guys that could do it, but the fact of the matter is it will never be acceptable. But this ANC gangsters, they don't care about this. And then he mentioned that he doesn't believe that a Maidan color revolution collapse will happen because of the investments of the Triple X. Now, I just want to tell you this. If you go to the Congo, there is a country constantly in war, constantly. There's no basic social system there. There's basically nothing operational in the Congo, apart from a few necessary trade connections. But you go into the rural Congo and it is a war zone. And in the middle of that war zone, you will find mines that are operational. The minerals are being mined, extracted, and packed and go out to the west. So South Africa, there's a lot of young blacks, I see them on Twitter and so. They are of the opinion that our mineral wealth is some kind of an assurance of survival. The Triple X owns all the minerals in any case. Plus, they know those minerals can go nowhere. That minerals can go nowhere unless it's physically taken out and picked up and carted away. So, and then he said that the Triple X has got a lot of investment. Now, I agree with that. But the reality is, those things will most probably not be touched during a collapse. Because those peacekeepers, they know what to do. They know how to do it. They know that American stealth bomber sitting in Botswana, incidentally, there's 8 of them, F-22s. If they start dropping the bombs, they're not going to drop those bombs in the center of Cape Town. They're not going to drop those bombs on power stations. They're not going to drop those bombs on the factories. They're going to drop those bombs on the squatter camps and on the wherever large volumes of people are gathering. That's where they're going to bomb.
Now,
and in the end of the day, our biggest problem is the BRICS conference in August. Because BRICS is a nuclear bomb for the G7.
Yeah.
And the fact that so many countries, Biden shrunk the timeline when he started the sanction war against Russia. The fact that there is now so many countries that want to join BRICS, as it is, with the 19 that has already apparently been approved, it is more than 50% of the global population, and it is already more than the G7 GDP.
Yeah. Now, Colyn.
And if the new ones comes in, it's going to be a major issue. So they want to stop that thing with everything that they've got. And that is why I say we're on a tight timeline for a Maidan.
Right. Now, we'll get to BRICS in a minute, but I just want to keep on this theme of the youth. And Gavin, I've got your question here about truck burning, which we'll get to shortly. But there's one that's really relevant to what we've been talking about. And just before I put that question to Muzi first, I just want to raise the point that during the Angolan War, when South Africa was fighting the ANC and other groups in Angola, Exxon had a factory or oil factory actually working in Luanda, in the port. And no one ever attacked that. And also, De Beers had a diamond mine in the middle of where the war zone was, which no one touched. It's quite extraordinary. They had a huge fence around it, and people used to fly into the mine. But these big companies kind of are isolated from the war that's killing people around them. It's absolutely crazy. Now, getting back to you, Muzi, I've got a question here from Marius, and he says, how big a part is drugs playing in our society here in South Africa among our youth?
It's massive. My little cousin, who's 23, he's a drug dealer, and he's very happy that he is. He sells edibles and, weed as well at parties and other drugs. He's very proud of how he can find people if they don't owe him, if they don't pay him back what they owe him. And a lot of young men from the townships, my wife would tell me that she went to school with a lot of them who are now in the streets, literally standing in the streets smoking yawompe, in which the young men are so quick to fall apart because of hopelessness and find themselves smoking weed. My little nephew, who's 12, some of his friends are already smoking weed already. And I asked him, how on earth are you guys smoking weed already? And he said, well, this guy's older brother got them into it, and things, there are problems at home, blah, blah, blah. But the drug situation is enormous. All the friends that I grew up with, they're either alcoholics or drug addicts right now. I don't have a single friend left, because when they realized that their dreams were not going to come true, that they could not be a superstar like Captain Jack Sparrow or Will Smith, they just fell apart. They used weed and alcohol as coping mechanisms, and now they totally warped. So you do get the extremes who end up in the street, but then the middle class blacks, they just smoke at home and just rot away there. They all had potential. We all went to university together. Regardless, they all smoked the most in university, and I just didn't understand why, but now I do. It seems they realized it's hopeless a lot sooner than I did. Maybe because the steps of or milestones for them, they never saw any milestones. I always saw milestones for myself, seeing little achievements that showed that I'm going somewhere, but ultimately I was also deceived. So the drug situation is a gigantic problem, and it's unending. It's only getting worse. And the young women, of course, particularly in high school, they start having these sugar daddies, these blessers. You go to local high and just park the car there just to watch. You'd see a lot of young girls being picked up by these big-bellied freaks of nature of men buying them KFC and an iPhone to have their bodies. And there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. You can't talk to the parents. They'll deny all those accusations. When you look at the young men who see these things, they are totally fried and absolutely hopeless, in which they eventually go to drugs because maybe the girl he had a crush on now has 15 sugar daddies and he's destroyed now. And so he needs to smoke something to feel better, sadly.
Yeah. Now, Colyn, do you have a comment to make regarding drugs amongst the youth?
Look, I'm sitting here. I am a non-practicing alcoholic. I stopped drinking in 1978. But I've explained it to my children many times, and I explained it to many of my friends. I'm an alcoholic because you cannot ever be cured from being an alcoholic. But I'm a non-practicing alcoholic. And that's it. But the fact of the matter is that if I see my youngest son, he had a major problem with booze, a major problem, until about 6 months ago. I had him here in my office and I said to him, that's the end of the line now. you don't want to accept you're an alcoholic. And before you accept it, nobody can help you. The tragedy is, if you don't accept it, you can't even help yourself. You have to understand that you've got a damn genetic issue, and if you don't face it, it's going to destroy you. And then one night, 12:15, I get a fucking phone call, and it was the cops. And I don't know, I don't want to tell you how many phone calls I had about him. And I asked the policeman, is he alive? And he said to me, you must just come here now. How long is it going to take you? And I mean, I think I cannot explain to people what I go through. I didn't even wake my wife up and tell her because she would immediately freak out. So I drove out there, and when I came to the scene, I saw the ambulance standing there with the doors closed. And as I reversed to park, I saw my son standing talking to a policeman. And I thought, okay, at least he's not fucking killed. And it was not one of those accidents. There was nobody else involved. It just went over the curb and a massive balsa. And I brought him home. I didn't want to talk to him. He wanted to talk to me, and I said to him, you know, I've got a specific principle in life. I don't talk to drunk people. I don't. So, shut up. And if you puke on my car, you're going to be very sorry because I'm going to clean it up with you. In any case, and that was the turning point. I must say, it was almost 6 months. And his life has changed, his attitude has changed, he started gymming, and he's lost a lot of weight, and he looks good, and he looks healthy, and he feels better. But he has got a major problem with depression. And today was specifically a very bad day for him. And about an hour ago, he sent me a message and said, yeah, I went to that place, and he named the place, and just had a sandwich, and I walked out. I nearly took a dump. I said, well, there you go. If you are there, then you can say, now you're no longer the bottle. But all his friends, over weekends, they pissed out of their minds. And I've said to him, you must stay away from people like that. How hard it or ever it may be, you cannot associate with those people. You cannot social with them specifically because they are going to pressurize you to do the same. And yeah, so, you know, I can understand. And I mean, my brother's son committed suicide, which was a hell of a thing for all of us. And but he had a major drug problem. And so I know the youngsters that I know, basically all of them has got either a booze problem or a drug problem. And Muzi said it is because of their mental state and this feeling of being lost. I've said to a guy I was in another show, and I said to him, the tragedy for me is that the pressure that was put on the youngsters to go to university, and I'm of the opinion that 80% of the youngsters that are there at university shouldn't be there. They should be somewhere in a technical college or a technical school or doing some form of artisanship or something, because they are not really academic material. Those are the ones that also never pass. That's why the pass rates, I think the pass rates is something like 4% or 9% or something like that. But the reality is this: they study these tree climbing degrees, And then they come out of university full of hope, and they can't find a job. Because a big company, and it must be a big company, will have one human relations or human resources officer. But there were 400 of them in a class. So they and I call it tree climbing degrees. In my days, when I was a youngster and when I was in university, the bulk of the students there were studying engineering, biology, chemistry, medical, things like that. Practical degrees that could make them become practical players in society. We looked down on the guys that were studying the tree climbing degrees, because those things have got no economical value. But that is where we are, and we have got a massive problem. I don't know how this youth is going to be saved. I don't know.
Right.
Because the way to save them is going to take a brutal dictator, a monster of a man, that force them into labor projects and hard physical labor from sun up to sundown. That's all. Yeah. And then their offspring will be better.
Okay.
But
Colyn, thank you. Now look, before I put the next question to Muzi, I would like to suggest that we have a debate or a discussion like this once a month with both of you, because there's so many subjects we've got here which we haven't even touched on. So look, we'll talk about that later, but maybe we can look at this as being a monthly discussion about topical events in South Africa. What are your thoughts about that? Muzi?
Sounds cool.
Colyn?
yeah, well, look, as long as I can bring something positive to the discussion,
Sure.
and bring stuff of value to the discussion, I'm willing to to participate. I just don't want to sit here and talk shit and the guys start switching channels and all of that because they are bored.
No, look, I'll tell you now, we've got hundreds of people watching, over 100 on YouTube, and several hundred on Loving Life TV or through Loving Life TV. So we've got a big audience. Now, I've got a question here which is on a totally different subject, but it's very topical. Gavin Bauer has asked, and Muzi, if you could respond to this first, what does Muzi and Colyn think of the current truck burning situation, and now that the Concourt has dismissed Zuma's last bid to stay out of jail? Muzi?
Oh boy, it is another PSYOP pending. The moment I saw that, I was like, oh, here we go again. It seems to me like there's always something in the treasure box of PSYOPs, distractions, ways to destroy the economy, ways to just ruin our lives with valid excuses because some savages decided to burn things down. I do think all these things are just an attempt to explain away why things are becoming more expensive, why our quality of life is decreasing in the country. It's all a controlled demolition. But ultimately, it's working. That's the sad part. It's actually working. And yeah, all we can do is just watch at this point, sadly.
Right. Colyn, do you have a comment about the truck burning situation?
Yeah, well, my friend Mr. X sent me the link first about the Zuma thing. And his comment on it was, they're trying to stir up the Zulus. And I said, what do you mean? He said, this jailing of Zuma is going to inflame the Zulus. Immaterial whether they're ANC or IFP. The Zulus are going to be inflamed. And then he said the truck burning is just a diversion. The ANC has got major internal problems. And the mainstream media in South Africa will not talk about it. But they've got major problems there. Cyril Ramaphosa is fighting for his life. And he is going to do things that can have devastating results for the country. But he's going to do it to make and ensure that that top ANC cadre gang, that they can survive. Now, this load shedding incidentally started yesterday, like over the top. Tonight, I saw a small clip that it's basically stage 7. There are other commentators that say, no, it's a stage 9. And the reality is that we are being machined here. They are now, the Zuma thing is making a hell of a lot of people extremely nervous. The truck burning is making another group of people extremely angry. And that truck burning, I think the undertone in the truck burning is to get to the migrant workers that are here. Because I saw a thing yesterday that the Department of Education has employed 10,000 Zimbabwean teachers. 10,000. Guys, what is that? What the hell is that? We've got teachers, South African teachers, sitting at home, jobless. They employ 10,000 teachers. What is that? What is that message that is being sent to the population? What is the message here? But to me, it all plays together because my theory is that Cyril Ramaphosa's instruction from XXX is to collapse the Republic. The Republic must be collapsed like the USSR collapsed. But he cannot do it before the energy system is in the hands of the oligarchs. To privatize Eskom, he gets a hell of a lot of resistance from inside the ANC and from guys like Malema, the EFF, and a lot of sober people like me, which knows that if we privatize Eskom, we are all in trouble. But that is the last state asset that has got national value. And you got to get that into the hands of the oligarchs. Now, the Zuma distraction, the truck burning distraction, and the stage 7 load shedding is busy pulverizing the public mentally. So he knows that the resistance in the ANC is going to block him to sell Eskom. But if we are all basically battered and bruised psychologically, we are sitting in a situation that if he comes out tomorrow and say, guys, I've got a buyer for Eskom, it's going to be this and that and that and that, and load shedding will be gone. 90% of the population is going to say, go for it. So I feel that the Zuma thing is making the people in Natal extremely nervous. The truck thing is making people in the industries extremely angry. And the load shedding is blossoming the general public.
Right.
So,
Now-
as he says, the psyops, yes, we are
Yeah.
being battered.
Now look, I'm going to go to your favorite subject now, Colyn, which is BRICS. Okay, and the topic here is BRICS doesn't need us. I'm going to get Muzi to speak first on this. Muzi, does BRICS need South Africa, or are they just basically a weight around the necks of the BRIC countries?
BRICS does not need us 100%. And as Colyn said, they see what South Africa has as a country. It's not because there's a lot of smart people here or a lot of hardworking people. It's just the resources here. And so instead of conquering the place, they have to go through the front door and shake hands and play nice. But ultimately, the only thing of value is the resources and the Cape Sea route. So they don't technically need us. In order for them to get what they want, they have to play nice. And sadly, it means they have to play the long game. The long game is that, yes, you're going to have to sink the country. You're going to have to destroy the republic. And this is my opinion. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that, number one, I said that I think South Africa will fall apart at the same time as the West, where there'll be this huge psyop of a cyber attack or aliens, whatever the heck they're cooking. And then BRICS will save the day. BRICS might say, or China, well, China's part of BRICS, they'll say, you know what, ESCOM's in shambles, let us do everything for you. As they normally do in most other countries. They come and build a whole port or an airport for you, and just like that, they own you. They bring their own workers, they don't owe you anything, you owe them everything. And then before you know it, we're enslaved and we are in a digital social credit system, which people won't think is that bad. People right now are desperate. Many people are saying, fine, privatize the thing. But many people in the township like Soweto or the township like Binari, I'm sure Colyn knows it, they don't pay for electricity at all, you know. And most people will say privatizing it is going to cut into our freedom here. So we're going to be against this. Screw BRICS. BRICS is a new enemy. It's a new colonizer. You know, they're going to create these stupid little divisions so people can make talk show videos about it to create controversy, likes and clicks. I want people to understand that a lot of things happening is just so people can be in this frenzy and be engaged in nothing, in a lot of nothing and a lot of noise, so that you don't take a step back and look at the bigger picture and look at everything holistically. Right? A lot of people like to focus on this one thing and then go to the next page when you could just move back and look at, oh, this whole thing is going to lead to this one thing over here. So that's my opinion as to BRICS is playing the long game. They planning to sink the country, and the way it's going to sink, well, with this Zuma thing, I also personally think that as we saw in 2021, if the Zulu people care about Zuma, because they clearly care more about him than the king, they would have gone to the prison where he was being held. But where did they go? They went to Pick and Pay, ShopRite, Macro, Wimpy, Checkers, Chicken Lickin', even their own places where they worked at. The guy who worked at ShopRite went in there and stole as much chicken and meal and rice and potatoes as he could. He did not go to his so-called king, Jacob Zuma, to the prison. It's not like the guards would have stopped him anyways. They didn't. A lot of these people are opportunists. When people say, like Mr. X called in, you said this is he said the Zulus will be upset. They don't care. He needs to understand, a lot of people need to understand that most Black people are just opportunists who just want, well, not me, they just want a reason to do something that they can get away with. Use it as a cover-up. We did this in the name of Zuma while he was still in jail when you were done stealing everything. And now you're in a line for like 5 days to get one loaf of bread. No foresight. But ultimately, BRICS doesn't need us, again, doesn't need us. But when they do take over, a lot of people, particularly in the middle class, might say, yes, please fix everything for us. The water's messed up. The electricity isn't working. take it all. We will take the social credit system. We'll get our new whatever in order to be in this new system. We'll take the chip or whatever the heck that they are waiting for us to make us so desperate enough to transition into the full fourth industrial revolution, because this is what it is. We can't look at this country as isolated from the rest of the world. Everybody is going in the same boat. I saw a video once of some people in Nigeria in some desert where they scanned in their card at a well and it told them how many points they have in the card, and water came out and they were all like dancing. I was like, oh, so you don't need like advanced technology in order to imprison people digitally. You don't. And surprisingly enough, they are still building smart cities, which is absurd to me, in KZN. I saw videos in which they are building it, which is crazy as to like, but why? I mean, you can just use a township as a smart city. It's already stacked up the way it would work in your favor, as we saw in the 2020 situation where everybody was just locked away. So a lot of things are psyops, where they tell you there's no funds, but there's funds to build a smart city, and then it's in KZN of all places. It's designed to just make you go insane because you can't keep track of all these things. But ultimately, yeah, BRICS doesn't need us. They just need what we have, and a lot of idiots wouldn't know what to do with what we have anyways. I mean, look what they're doing with ESCOM. So that's my opinion.
Right. Now, I'm going to hand over the floor to Colyn to talk to us about BRICS. BRICS? Colyn, it's all yours.
I think Muzi has got a bit of he's got a Western mind when he looks at BRICS. The first thing that he is assuming, and that is that BRICS wants to come in here and save us. That is not the BRICS philosophy. The basic building block of the BRICS philosophy is no interference in domestic affairs. Zero. BRICS is about trade. That is what BRICS is about today. Trade. And making it possible for countries to trade outside the grip of the weaponized dollar. BRICS is allowing countries that have been sanctioned into pieces to trade with other BRICS countries without having any issue with sanctions. And there was a very important release from the president of the BRICS Development Bank about 4 weeks ago. He said something that should have made the national media, the international media, explode, but very few reported on it. And he made the following statement, and he said, if you as a country want to apply for membership and financial support from the BRICS Development Bank, the fact, this is important, the fact that you have defaulted on IMF or World Bank loans will not count against you. Now let that sink in. What was the subliminal message that he was actually giving to these countries? We know there are certain of these developing countries that are over their necks in debt to the IMF or the World Bank, and it will take generations to get out of it. He's actually saying for them default on that loans. And that is going to implode the Western financial system, because the whole bloody Western system is built on debt. All right. So to think that BRICS has this vision of coming in here to save us here in South Africa, that's foolish. BRICS wants to know, what are you going to bring to the table? What are you bringing to the table? Yeah, okay, you've got minerals, yes, but the Congo has got the same, Zimbabwe has got the same, Zambia has got the same, Pakistan has got the same. So that's not something special, okay? But we'll take that. It's okay, we will accept that you've got that. What else? What else are you going to bring? Yeah, we've got a lot of fruit and vegetables. I say, yes, we like that, bring. We've got meat, we've got beef. Bring, we want. What else have you got? Hey guys, there's another country here, another BRICS member, that oak sitting there at the end of the table. He's desperate for trailers. Oh shit, no, we can't. We don't know. Our trailer factories are not working anymore. Okay, so you could. Whoa. Have you got clothing? What have you got? No, we've got nothing. We've got our farm produce, but we've got a major problem. The DA is locked that farm produce up in the AGOA agreement with the West. The DA is deadly dangerous for us all. Apart from the fact that they're totally in control of XXX. XXX is in total control of them. We've got a more of a problem. They've got a lot of brains. That is serious. When they started with their noise about AGOA, I said, okay, but whose fault is it that we don't have huge export agreements to the BRICS countries, to the East Bloc? 3 months ago, a ship docked in St. Petersburg with South African fresh produce on. The first time in 30 years, that ship was sold out before the produce hit the quay. And then when I started looking at it, I got in touch with a guy and he said to me, no. We've been exporting wine to Russia for the past 7 years already. So it is the organized agriculture and the politicians, specifically the DA, that has kept the farmers out of the BRICS markets. Now they want to threaten the farmers with AGOA. And then you see these passionate posts on Twitter and on Facebook about, the farmers are going to be, and I said, what? Whose fault is that for a start? And then the SPIEF 23 conference took place in St. Petersburg. 130 countries participating. 1,900 delegates. Was there a South African delegation there? No. Windy and his gang was on their knees in Washington with a bucket of Vaseline next to them, pleading the case for AGOA. Why were they not in SPIEF? Why were they not there, finding opportunities for South Africans in the BRICS bloc? So, yes, BRICS, I said it, we were pulled into BRICS primarily for the Cape Sea route, primarily. But to think that BRICS want to come and industrialize and develop our country, forget that. That is not the BRICS philosophy. The BRICS philosophy is you do for yourself and we help you to get it to other places. That is the whole thing. But we sit with a situation here with the Cape Sea route. BRICS is not going to let that thing go. Not for sure. And I won't be surprised if we land into a situation like they landed in Ukraine, but more closely to what is happening in Sudan now. Because what is happening in Sudan is because it happened just after the Russians signed the agreement for the Russian fleet base in that harbor. And it is so strategic because it is the sea that goes up to the Suez Canal. But the Americans started that war there in Sudan like that because of this, to keep the Russians out there. But now they've got a Muzi problem. Egypt has applied to join BRICS. So what happens? The Suez Canal belongs to Egypt. Egypt is in BRICS. If Xi Jinping hits his WhatsApp to the guy in Cairo and says, hits it, lock the gates, they'll do it. The same with the Panama Canal. So the Cape Sea route is absolutely vital for the people's survival. And that's it. For the commercial survival. This fleet exercises that was held, people looked at it and they talked a lot here and there and there. What did South Africa actually contribute to that exercise? What? One dilapidated half-working ship. The rest is, the fleet, our naval fleet is gone, basically. And a few overweight size 97 officers sitting there. That's what we contributed. But the reality is, those Chinese ships and those Russian ships were in all Zululand harbors. I say that exercise was a fact-finding mission. 3 weeks ago, Russia launched all their nuclear submarines. Nobody knows where the hell those things are. Nobody knows where they are. I won't be surprised if there's 2 of them hanging around the Cape and up the Zululand coast. So, the guys, I cannot express it more pertinently. It is extremely important that we take note of this because BRICS is a nuclear bomb for the G7. BRICS can destroy the Western economy. And that is not, wishful thinking. That's a reality. BRICS can destroy the Western economy. And the West knows it. And they've got a major problem because they are absolutely powerless to do anything about it. And then you sit with America with $32 trillion overdraft. And the Chinese holds a hell of a lot of the securities. So they're in a desperate situation in the West, but they painted themselves into that corner. But what does the West do when they are really in a corner? They bomb the shit out of somebody. And I am just really, really, really nervous that a fight can break out for the Cape Sea route. And we're going to be caught in the middle.
Right.
And
now,
there's nothing that we can do about it. So BRICS didn't really need us for anything else but that sea route. But you cannot sit and think that BRICS is going to develop your country like the Westerners did. They're not doing it. And I have to add this. Muzi made a mention of, they build your airport and then all of a sudden it's no longer your airport. Let me inform you how that shit works. When the Chinese make deals with a country, that needs a harbor, because the material the Chinese wants needs to be exported through a proper functioning harbor. The Chinese say, okay, your harbor needs to be upgraded. It's going to be $500 million to do it. You don't have it. We'll give you the $500 million. But this is how it's going to work. We're going to build that harbor to specification. And we are going to manage that harbor. And from this income of the harbor, the normal shipping income that any harbor makes, that income, we're going to take that off the loan. And when the loan is paid, the harbor is yours. Now, that is how they do it.
Yeah.
But the West tells you, the MSN tells you, no. The Chinese grabbed the guy's harbor. Now they don't have a harbor anymore. When the West, a video that I'm releasing at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, I've got a video clip in there of a guy explaining, a black guy explaining about a $2 billion loan that was made from the EU in 2014. That thing needs to be paid back next year. And they audited the thing. Not one single infrastructure project can be linked to that 2 billion. And here comes the kicker. Of the 2 billion loan, only 1 billion actually came into South Africa. How's that?
That's crazy. Now look, guys, I'm going to be wrapping up this live stream shortly, but I've got a question here which basically is a good way to end the discussion. And Roderick has also said, can we brainstorm solutions? And Roderick, yes, we can. We're going to now have a monthly discussion like this with Muzi and Colyn. So we'll be obviously covering a whole lot of ground. We haven't covered much tonight, but we have covered a lot of detail. It's been fascinating. Now, Marius has said, are there any light, or is there any light at the end of the tunnel? We cannot give up hope. We must act now before it is too late. I'm going to put that question to Muzi first, and then I'll get Colyn to respond. And then we'll just wrap up this particular live stream. Otherwise, it'll be going on for too long. Muzi, over to you.
Okay, as I said earlier, I mean, the way Colyn outlines it, I mean, he's telling the truth. He outlines it as it plainly is. It does not seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. Most of the young people he knows are either alcoholics or struggling with drugs. And so even I mentioned that young people, the reason they are this way is because there's a lack of hopelessness. These people don't believe there's any light at the end of the tunnel. So they throw their hands up and say, whoop-de-doo, I'm too scared to die, so I'll just smoke and drink and party and just live a life of hedonism. And so now it's one of those things I wanted to bring up here as to like, what is the hope then? What gives me hope? Because I don't drink, I don't smoke, you know, and it's nothing to brag about, but everybody else I know around my age is an alcoholic, even if they have a job. So the only thing that makes me different is because of my faith. Honestly, that's honestly it. Because the churches have absolutely failed. They are no difference to snake oil salesmen. You know, they're selling you holy water that can give you R1 million or holy bricks. Buy this brick for R2 and eventually turn into a mansion if you buy it over time. It's a circus. It's a freak show. And so this is the thing of like, if we look at it objectively, the odds are against us completely. And so the other solution that we have, though, is that we need to come together. But how many people have been saying that? St. Landers has a plan. It says they built something somewhere in the woods, somewhere in the country, well, we don't know where exactly it is. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know if there's enough resources there. We don't know if 15,000 people showed up, there'd be enough. You don't know at all, and so people, of course, are reluctant to leave their little comfortable place, even if there's load shedding, even if there's rats running around. It's the only home they know. They can deal with the rats and the load shedding. Instead of dropping all of that and going to a mountain where you have no idea where it's at, or if you're going to be in a tool shed or wood shed or whatever, you have no idea. People say they want to come together, but no one has actually done it correctly except the Iranians, but they started a long time ago. We always say we need to do this, we need to do that, but how many actually do? How many people actually come to a meeting? Here in Nelspruit, I've tried to host so many. People just love complaining on Facebook in particular, just complaining endlessly about the problems. When I offer something and say, hey, this is what we can do, I'm labeled as an angry person. When I try to explain the cultural differences as to this is why the ones in power are doing this, because culturally it's not a problem for them. They want to call me racist. And so, but what do you mean? And so for me in particular, the only reason I'm not an alcoholic, nor have I killed myself, because everybody doesn't know why they're alive. I wake up and feel, what's the point? The only point that I'm still here is because the Lord said you must live for Christ, right? To live for Christ. So that's the only reason I'm still here. I don't think there is a solution other than coming together, and we actually are coming together. But I know that's been said 1,000 times, and most people don't mean it. That's the real situation here. And so I believe, that whether I live or die, regardless, the Lord Jesus has a place for me in heaven. So I am going to live my life as he directed in the Bible, regardless of what happens, because nobody is special in this world. They hated him, they'll hate me too. And all of those who lifted their hands up and said no problem to the scientists, well, look where we are now. And if you really want a solution, actually start something, come together instead of us always, because I get sick of it too, always talking about the problem, but nobody's saying, here's a meeting place, Saturday at the library, 3 o'clock, we're going to be brainstorming things. Nobody's doing that. So as far as I know. So yeah, solution-wise, we have to come together, but are you really going to come together? The person who said that, Scott, does he really want to come together? Is he really going to call Colyn right now and want to discuss real solutions? Does he want to spend his airtime calling him? Does he want to do that? The chances of that are low for many people. So at this point, we too are becoming just talk show hosts, discussing how doomed we are. And this is why young people don't want to be involved with us, because there's nothing practical we're actually doing. I've offered practicalities, but too many are too lazy to get involved. So what are we supposed to do? I'm just being honest at this point. So for me, my faith has kept me alive and keeps me going. And that's all that's different between me and the rest. That's all there is to it. That's my take.
Thanks, Muzi. Look, we'll do a wrap up in a second, but first off, Colyn, what are your comments about that question?
Repeat the question that I don't miss anything. What is the solution?
Now, here we are. Are there any light at the end of the tunnel? We cannot give up hope. We must act now before it is too late.
Look, the unfortunate thing is the only real way out of this mess is physical labor. Create stuff. And I want to say that having a useless government and a more useless president is a terrible disaster. That is why communities needs to do it. Like everybody was freaking out about the balls up in KwaZulu. And a few people that are part of this lot spatbende, as I call them, hit the road for Never Never Land, and they reached their destination and they found there was nothing. They came back very disillusioned, sold all their pack up and go gear and decided they're going to stick it out to where they are and the environment they know. You get a town like a Muzi and Colyn on the south coast, and the whole community of a Muzi and Colyn stood together to protect their town. White, brown, black, all of them stood together. And they came out of it, not unscathed, but definitely not battered and bruised. So, the survival is in the community. Maybe Muzi must start in his communities and do what Paul Kagame of Rwanda did when he inherited that broken country. He started off with every day, every Saturday was cleaning day. And all the people of Rwanda went out of their yards into their environment and started cleaning up. And he participated in it. I know Mashaba tried it in Joburg. I don't know how well it went and so forth, but that is what Kagame did in Rwanda. And in my later, one of my latest Skidmarks, I had a slideshow of the Rwanda streets. And what was absolutely mind-blowing is there is not a single piece of paper, a tin can, nothing. The sidewalks are clean. There's nothing. There are sidewalks that are not paved, but is grondpad, but they are swept. The gutters of the streets is clean. There's nothing. Not leaves, not papers, not plastic bags, not bottles, nothing. And there's one shot over a highway, not a highway, a main road into the city. And you can look down the road and up some grass embankments and so. Not a trace of rubbish anywhere. Now that, and the Bible tells you cleanliness is godliness. And he started with that, a simple thing. And they cleaned up. When I did that one Skidmark about Orania, and the title of the thing was Orania is holding up the mirror. And if you look at the Orania village, and then you take Alexandra.
So let's talk about the best way to prepare your eggs for maximum nutrition. And I'm mainly
talking. To me, as a commentator, my question is, if Orania can look like that, why can Alexandra not look like that? It's not the government that is handling Orania. It is the community. I am asking to the black people that I've asked it many times to some guys communicating with them. I said, why is there not 1,000 Oranias in South Africa? Why not? You make a hell of a song about Orania and this and that and that. And there's no blacks allowed or what? I don't know of whites that live in Alexandra. I don't know of whites that live here in Kanyamazan. I don't know. that's a black township. I had this interesting interface with a guy, he's my banker at FNB. And I got there and there was a lot of things that he had to do with we had to cover. And he said, listen, it's lunchtime. Let's go and have a burger here at the Wimpy. I said, sure. And we walked in there and we sat down and we started talking. And then he talked to me and he said to me, you know, me and my wife, if we go out in the evening and we get to a restaurant and we're the only blacks there, we feel uncomfortable. We don't feel comfortable. He said, you know, Colyn, black people, we are loud. I say, yeah, I know it. I grew up among blacks, so I know that. And he said to me, we sit there and we really don't enjoy the meal. There's nothing wrong with the food, nothing wrong with anything, but we don't feel comfortable there. And I said to him, well, me and my wife had a tradition that on Friday nights we would go out, and my most favorite spot was there's a chicken place here in town called Galitos. And on a Friday night, we will arrive there and sit out there on the terrace. And me and her is the only white people there. And we've never had issues, problems, nothing, but the place is buzzing. And then one night I made a mistake and I took my brother and his wife with me. What a fucking disaster. And afterwards, the stories, I said, listen, guys, obviously you don't living in South Africa. I don't know where you are living, but I'm living in South Africa. So I think that by starting a simple thing in the communities, just get the youngsters, get a few of them. You're not going to get all the youngsters. Get a few and start cleaning one street, not the whole community. Clean one street and do it every Saturday. And maybe after the third or fourth Saturday, you see, well, we started off with 10, but we're now 40 people here. And then when you come around the corner, you say, oh, yeah, the guys in this next street, they're also doing it. Kagama did that basic thing. And can you imagine the spiritual healing that took place in the Rwanda nation? You must understand that nation came through that horrific genocide thing. And they were most probably, I don't even want to try and imagine what was in the minds of those people after seeing what they saw, you know, the experiences they had. Their mental state must have been, I don't know, I can't place myself there. Maybe my grandparents understood that with the bloody English when they did to the Boer what they did. But the fact is that by cleaning their environment, he installed the first payment or the first down payment on healing. And another guy that I have contact with from time to time lives in China. He comes from Italy, but he lives in China and he's been living there for 14 or 16 years. And I asked him and I said to him, what is the case with unemployment there? And he said to me, Colyn, I'm here 14 years. I have never seen a figure published for unemployment. I've never seen it. I said, now how the hell does that work? And he said, you know, the Chinese people, they've got this thing in them. If he cannot find a job, he creates a job. And that blew me away. And I thought to myself, you know, and now I don't want to, but I have to mention it. Go and look at the Afrikaner nation, not the whites, the Afrikaner nation. Look at them. They stood up out of that absolute horrendous Anglo-Boer war. They didn't sit on a heap and screamed for reparations. No. They went back to their burned down farms and they started rebuilding it. And they rebuilt their lives. And you don't know anything about that, Muzi, but you have experienced 1994. How old are you now? When were you born?
I'm 28.
When were you born?
95.
Oh, you were born in 95?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you didn't see it. But if you talk to people that actually lived prior to 1994, they will tell you they could go to the clinic in the village there. They served within an hour or 2 hours. They're back at their work. They've got their medicine. They've got everything. You would go to Rob Ferreira and you get perfect medical treatment. You go to Baragwana, if you pay 10 rand, you get an open heart surgery. Those were the things. The Sasa generation is, unfortunately, they have never experienced a working country. They only know failure. They only know disaster. They only know struggle. They have got no reference to what it is like to go to Home Affairs, stand in a queue. There is 10 clerks serving the people. You go in there, the queue is, you are about number 5 in line. You stand, an hour later, you're gone, you're back at your work. And everything done that you wanted done. They've never experienced that. So they don't have a reference. And that is a hard thing. And this criminal politicians, they are using that. They are using that. So apartheid is the boogeyman. But they can't show you the boogeyman. They tell you about the boogeyman. I mean, this is the thing. But I'm going to close down now. Think about what I've said about cleaning your environment. Cleaning the environment. Even if you are 5 guys or 4 guys or only yourself with a bag of plastic bags, I'm sure if you go to the spa and say, listen, please, guys, I want to go and clean up the street in there. I need refuge bags. I can't afford it. Can you sponsor me with refuge bags? And you will be surprised. And you go and you do it. And then next Saturday you do it again. And maybe by the 3rd Saturday you are 2 guys. And by the 4th Saturday you are 4 guys. And by 3 months later, you are 20 or 30 guys doing it. That's the only way out of this shit, Muzi. That's the only way. There's not a quick fix. Okay, Scott, I'm done.
Colyn, thank you so much. Muzi, do you want to just respond to what Colyn's just said?
Yeah, real quick. I will say, Scott, you know, when we had a discussion about African psychology, most of the things Colyn said does not apply within their psychology. And maybe next time we can mention those things culturally as well, because somebody would have done it by now. There's many people who were like me, but were butchered and bullied because they thought outside the box. They wanted to do better for their community. Penwell, somebody you've mentioned before, Colyn, has mentioned himself that I, as an intelligent Black person, am sick and tired of giving back to the community because they do nothing but shame me and call me a wannabe white boy, an Oreo, a coconut, a cheese boy, just because I speak a different English to them. I have a better accent. I'm educated. Even Nhlanhla Lux, who's a criminal, has mentioned similar things, but because he has actually been given some political influence and hard power, he was able to establish himself as somebody for the Black people because he was able to create an enemy who was the Black foreigner. In order to get Black people behind you, you must establish an enemy, either a racial enemy or a a tribal enemy. And Santa Lux was able to set up a tribal enemy. Hey, look at those non-black South Africans. They're the ones who are stealing your jobs. And so he rose. And so Mugabe was able to rally his minions by kicking out the white farmers and kicking out the Ndebele people. So I have done all these things myself. And I have been called an Oreo, deep fried, whatever, along with Panuel, who's now said that, I made a video on it actually as well. He said that these people don't want solutions. These people want us to control them. These people are our stepping stools. They don't want autonomy. They don't want independence. They don't want responsibility. If you advocate for personal responsibility, they will hate you, they will kill you. And this is exactly why intelligent Black people flee the country, flee the continent, or flee the community and live here. That couple who told you that they don't feel comfortable around white people, they're contradictory in them. They have cognitive dissonance. A lot of these guys suffer from cognitive impairment. And so that cognitive dissonance is, well, you know what, I want to go where the white people build stuff, but I also like the dysfunction of my own people. Which one is it? You know? So ultimately, believe me, Colyn, I've tried. And as I said, I'm the only one left here. I'm the only one left. So a true solution would be a non-racial one where I have to gather the Black. They hate me. It has to be people who want to do better. Like your youngest son who's suffering from depression. I studied psychology so I could help young people, but they don't want to be helped because some have told me, what's the point of thinking too hard or trying anything? We're screwed anyways. Let me just live with my depression, play my games, and eat my pizza, because you helping me will only make me experience the grief more. I'll be so sober and see everything collapsing in front of me, I just might take my own life. This is the hardest thing ever. It's never, I don't think it's happened in human history before, because there's always something to do. There was no, XXX stealing your job or putting in robots and stuff like that. It's extremely hard, and it's going to require more brainstorming, but it's also going to require the elder generation to hear us, to listen to us. And it seems like I'm the only one speaking for these young people, because they can't articulate what they are going through either. They don't know how to express themselves. They don't know what to do except for drinking and smoking, because that's the only thing that makes them feel better. They can't open up because they're too traumatized, feel betrayed, and so on and so on. So I know it sounds hopeless and bad, but that is the situation. It would be better if we unpack it little by little as time goes on. And then hopefully when the younger ones see that, hey, these guys have a point, let me join in. Hey, then we got somebody. That's what I think.
Right. Okay, guys, look, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Scott, I need to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Colyn.
Muzi, I personally believe that you are creating your own obstacles. You know what? When I started my channel, I'm a white South African that grew up through the Rooi Gevaar tyd. My gender went to fight in Angola. And just, Scott, I want to just tell you this. We didn't fight the ANC in Angola. We fought the Cubans. In any case, the fact of the matter is, I started, and the people, you cannot believe the names they called me, because I was pro-Russia, pro-Putin. The war started with me being 100% pro-Ukrainian, and vocally so. And one woman sent me a private message on Twitter and told me, listen, I think you must go and research the Donbass. At that stage, I didn't even know there was a place like the Donbass. And I started reading, And by day 3, I was basically a mental wreck when I realized how the Western media lied to us. And that woman, she's married to a farmer, but she was she used to work as a part-time journalist, freelancer journalist, and she spent 6 times in the Donbass. And when she came back, not one of the publishing houses here wanted to publish her work, because it was 100% contradictory to what the mainstream media was telling. So I personally went through that emotional turbulence to accept that I've been lied to. And today, if you look on my channel and you read through the comments on the videos, you will be surprised to see how many people are got the same feelings as me about Russia. And so I want to tell you this. I think that you are creating your own obstacles in your mind by using culture and tradition and things like that in a negative way. If you listen to my Skidmarks, I talk a lot about culture and I talk a lot about tribes. And that is what is important. This is one of the big problems with the Sasa generation. They don't belong to a tribe. They don't know what their cultural roots are. They grew up without a father, and they don't know. And I've said it in one of my videos, take a car or a taxi and go to a rural village where you think you might be from. And go and sit down with a guy, with an old man, 50, 60, 70 years old, and let him talk to you. Don't talk to him. Let him talk to you. Because if you don't find your roots, you're done. You won't have a future. You're like a leaf that the wind has blown off a tree, and now you're on the wind, and there you go. And that's it. But you need to be part of a tree. You have to be. Otherwise, you as a human cannot function. That is how we have been designed psychologically. We have been designed like that. And if we deny our tribalism, if we deny our culture, there's so many white people that go and join black political parties. And one night I was in a horrible, not a debate, an argument with a guy that did it. And I said to him, you know what? I've got news for you. Those black guys sitting with you around that table, they don't trust you. And they will never trust you. Because in their minds, they say to themselves, if this guy can betray his own tribe, he will betray us.
All right. Colyn.
That is what it is.
Colyn, I'm going to wrap this up now because we're well over 2 hours. But look, that almost felt like a father speaking to his son there. It was really interesting. And I saw Muzi was listening intently to what you were saying. So maybe on next live stream, what we'll do is we'll have a discussion about this very topic as the central focus. What do you guys think?
I'm on. You can throw me with anything what you like, man.
Okay.
Scott, I just have to share this with you.
Go ahead.
Just before the live show was started, just before that, I got notification from YouTube that my channel has now been monetized.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe it?
So you
believe it?
You've got rid of the horrible community strikes, have you?
Yes.
Oh, well done. Congratulations, mate. I'm really pleased for you. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, so anyway, guys, look, have a great evening, and I'm going to wrap this live stream up with I think Hier bly ek boer. Okay, so it's a lovely old Afrikaans song, and it's by Winston Coetzee. Muzi, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I look forward to our next chat.
Sure. See you guys.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was our live stream with Colyn and Muzi, and I'm going to close this out with Hier bly ek boer. Please remember to register on lovinglivetv.com. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already done so. And please remember to subscribe to this platform here on YouTube, which is just a simple marketing thing. Our main platform is lovinglivetv.com. I see Nat's put a bunch of question marks in the little side chat there. Nat, I'll talk to you about that later. All right. Hier bly ek boer. Here we go, guys. Take care and have a great evening. And don't forget, tomorrow night we have another live stream at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens van ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land. Die is my reg. Hier is ek boer. Stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n dief in die nag sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Wat my mense voor, hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n blaassam in die somer wat vreugde bring, my oupa wat maniekiru kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande, hier was hy boer. Wortels leek diep in die grond geplant. My seun soos my pa, los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom. Die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom, die leeu sal kom.